Hi everyone, it's Lorna from All About the Sew, and today I'm going to talk through the safe use of a variety of different rotary cutters and how you use them in combination with the quilting ruler and the self-healing mat. So the first thing is to consider which rotary cutter you go for. They all do the same thing, but they all vary in their design. So they all have an open and a closed position for safety purposes. And I always encourage people to, when they leave them on the mat or on the table, to get into the habit of putting them in the closed position. So you don't want a blade to be exposed like that when you're not using it, in case it gets knocked off. So in this one is a simple design, but this is the closed position, and then you slide the button down and it exposes the blade, so that's the open position. And then I would put it down safely on the table in the closed position. This one here is like a pair of garden secateurs. So at the moment I can't squeeze that handle, so it's closed and it's nice and safe. In order to open them, I depress that red button, and I could have it like that, or if I wanted to close it in the open position to secure it, I'd just flip it over and press the red button on the other side, and now it's fixed in the open position if you're doing a lot of cutting. But again, I would get into the habit of putting it into the locked position when it was down on the table. And finally, this one is over either with the blade open or the blade closed. So when you're using a rotary cutter, I always advise to use it in combination with a cutting mat, also known as a self-healing mat, that basically protects your table from getting scratch marks on it. So they often will have inches or centimetres marked out to help you. So on this one, it's got the inches on one side, and then if you turn it over, it's got centimetres on the other side. And then to use a ruler with the self-healing mat and the rotary cutter enables you to get really straight lines. One of the advantages of using a rotary cutter is that it is more accurate than using a pair of scissors if you use it correctly, and you can cut through several layers at the same time. So a quilting ruler is really a useful bit of kit. The reason why it's a special type of ruler is because it has this deep edge to it, so that when you're guiding the rotary cutter along the edge, it's less likely to slip off like you would do with a normal ruler. So I'd always invest in a good quality quilting ruler to go with your piece of kit. I also find that standing up helps with the technique, because you can get your body force behind you when you need to press down. There's nothing more irritating than if you have to end up doing small little cuts because you're not pressing down hard enough. So just stand up nice and comfortably, and then you can get your body weight behind the cutting process. So I'm going to demonstrate cutting out a 4-inch square of fabric here using my rotary cutter and my ruler along with my self-healing mat. So you can use the numbers and guides on your ruler to help here. So you'll notice that the numbers are actually back to front here. So 0 is on the right side, and then the numbers go up as you go left on the ruler, which is obviously different to a normal ruler. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut out a 4-inch square from this piece of fabric. So you can see here, this is the selvage edge. So I know that that's the straight edge, but I don't want to include any of the selvage in my square. So what I'm going to do is just use my ruler. I'm going to open up the blade, and then I'm going to cut off the selvage. So in order to make sure that it's straight, we know the selvage edge is straight. I could line up the selvage edge with one of the lines on my mat, and then I don't want to obviously trim off a lot, but I could line up my ruler here with that 1/2 inch mark there. and it's nicely lined up with this one of the other lines here. So you can see that those lines are matching up with on the ruler with the mat, so that I know that that's straight now. So I can go ahead. One of the golden rules is always cut away from the body, okay? Never cut down towards you, because if you slip and go too far, then obviously you're going to injure yourself. So I'm going to hold my rotary cutter nice and firmly. I'm going to press down and I'm going to roll the rotary cutter along the edge of the ruler, just pressing down evenly up to the top of the ruler. You don't want to get your fingers too close here, just in case you did slip, but if you're using the proper ruler, then you're unlikely to do this. And then you can see here that the fabric comes away nicely and it's a nice sharp edge. So I now want to make sure that this top edge is nice and straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pivot my fabric around. And I know that this bottom edge is nice and straight. So what I can do is, I'm not actually measuring anything here, I'm just getting a nice straight line here. So I've lined up the 9-inch mark here along with the bottom of the fabric. So I now know that that's a nice right angle. So again, make sure it's all in line, just press down, even pressure up to the top, and that comes away nicely. So I now know that that's a nice right angle to begin with. So what I've done now is I've lined up the 2 straight edges of the fabric with 2 of the straight edges on the mat, and I've got the bulk of the fabric to the right hand side. So what I can do now is get my quilting ruler, and we want a 4-inch square. So I'm going to use this number 4 here, and the 4-inch line I'm going to line up with this line here. So I then know that this line here is at 0 because it's going 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So what I'm going to do is then firmly hold the ruler in place, press down nice and evenly, and I've got my 4 inches going across there. So now I need my 4 inches going down there. What I'm not going to do is turn my ruler that way and do the rotary cutter that way, okay? Because you're more than likely to put your hand there, and this is what I have done in the past, and I wouldn't recommend it because you can easily go a little bit too far and then hurt your finger, which is exactly what I did. So I have lived and learned. So what we're going to do is we're then going to move the fabric around again. Okay, and I can line it up now with some lines now on the mat. So now I need to measure 4 inches that way. So you can see here, now that I've got less fabric covering, I could use the markings on the mat, or I could just practice using my ruler here, line up the 4 inches line on the ruler with the edge of the fabric, because the ruler is see-through, so you can see through it. And then I know that this line here is going to be my 0 line. And so here I've got a really accurate 4 inch by 4 inch square. And so you can layer up your fabric, so you could do various layers at the same time, which if you're doing any quilting, then it is quite a time-consuming process cutting out all your pieces. So actually, to be able to cut through various layers at once is brilliant. It's also really good for cutting oilcloth as well. So you just need to be careful when you use it. So hopefully after watching the video, you'll be more confident about using a rotary cutter to cut out fabric using the self-healing mat and the quilting ruler as a guide.